All right, so tell me about your book, Why Women Should Rule the World.
Well, basically, the book is an argument that more women in positions of public life and authority and power makes the world a better place. And certainly not in any way an argument against men. I think women should rule the world alongside men because men and women sometimes bring different qualities to our public life, different life experiences, different perspectives on issues, sometimes different ways of resolving problems. And I think, again, that balance, those different views, those different perspectives can come together in ways that will get us to a better place.
Great. So just yesterday, President-elect Obama announced Hillary Clinton would be his nominee for Secretary of State.
Right.
Why do you think he nominated Hillary for that position, and why do you think she chose to accept it rather than stay in the Senate?
Well, I think it was a tough choice for her, actually, and I have not spoken to her personally, but among the people that I've talked to that are familiar with her thinking, it was two great jobs. It's a great dilemma to have, I suppose. But I think President-elect Obama chose her because he thought she was the best person for the job, that she could bring the combination of stature, of understanding of the world, of experience traveling the world, and knowledge of foreign leaders and the issues that affect their countries and our country, and an ability to work as part of a team, which she has shown herself more than capable of doing both in the Senate and at the White House. And I think he thought that he's going to need the very best players at a time when our country faces so many huge problems. He's probably not going to be able to travel as much as he'd like to. He wants somebody that he thinks is very strong, that can, again, represent the country and advocate on behalf of him and his administration effectively and be heard around the world. So I think it's a great choice, and I think she'll be a fantastic Secretary of State. And I think it's interesting that 3 of the last 4 Secretaries of State have been women. I'm not sure what it means, but it's definitely interesting.
It's definitely interesting. There's also been lately a lot of talk in the mainstream media about 2008 being the year of the woman and a year when a lot of big strides were made for women in politics. But I've also heard other accounts of women saying, no, it wasn't a great year because we have these 2 leaders there, Palin and Hillary Clinton, but neither one of them got elected to the position they were running for. What's your take on all this talk about 2008 as the year of the woman?
I think it was definitely a step forward for women. Were there some disappointments along the way? Yeah. But I think it's important to remember that Hillary Clinton is the first woman ever to run a serious campaign for the presidency. No woman had ever won a single primary until Hillary Clinton did, and she won 20. I think, people on some level have long wondered whether women were tough enough to withstand the rigors of a competitive campaign. I think Hillary more than answered that question. She ran that campaign on her terms. She stayed in until the very end, and I think earned the respect of both Republicans and Democrats, both men and women, and people around the world. And one of the, I think, signs of that is that women in other countries, in Israel, Japan, who are running to be prime minister, say, I want to be my country's Hillary Clinton. So she might not have gotten all the way there, but I think she changed the game forever. And I think Sarah Palin, while I disagree with her on almost every issue I can think of, I think it's interesting and important that she considers herself a feminist. She doesn't necessarily agree with every issue of the so-called feminist agenda, but she is a woman who has lived her life by her own terms. And I think that's important, and I think she showed herself to be very resilient. She took a lot of hits on the campaign trail, and she got up and dusted herself up and went back out there, and I think that's important. And I think if Sarah Palin wants to, and she goes back and does some of the hard work and bones up on domestic and foreign issues, I think she can continue to be a leader in her party, and perhaps she will run for president someday. She's certainly shown herself to be interested in doing that. So I don't think this is the end for either Hillary Clinton or Sarah Palin. I think it's the beginning of something new for Hillary Clinton and the beginning for Sarah Palin, who's only 44 years old. So, and then on top of that, more women were elected to the House, and we have one more woman in the Senate than we've ever had before. And if you look at the cabinet that President Obama is putting together, there are going to be more women in senior positions in the cabinet, in the White House, than probably any point in our country's history. So I think there's a lot to feel good about.
Great. Okay, and my last question is, as a former White House press secretary, what advice would you give to President-elect Obama's incoming press secretary, Robert Gibbs?
Well, first of all, I would say never take it personally and never lose your sense of humor, because On any given day, on every given day, probably you'll need both. I mean, some days the briefing room can get pretty tough. He knows that from the campaign trail, but the White House briefing room maybe takes it to another one more notch up. And I think humor can be a very effective tool in disarming disarming an angry moment or communicating with the American people. I would say, be sure to have a good time, enjoy the moment. Some days seem to last forever, but the years in the White House will go by quickly. And be grateful for the opportunity to serve, which I know he is. So I wish him all the best. I'm sure we'll be in touch over the coming weeks and hopefully years, and I'll share more advice with him privately.
All right, thank you.